Welcome to the Our Hen House interview. I'm Jasmine Singer.
I'm Marianne Sullivan.
Marianne, do you feel like if we just went out to the grocery store or a coffee shop and I said, I'm Jasmine Singer, you would just immediately, I'm Marianne Sullivan. Because I feel like you just say it.
No.
It's like a call and response. Okay.
I don't think I would do that.
All right. Okay. Well, I also don't
I think I know when I'm on Zoom and when I'm not. I don't know.
I frequently don't go into grocery stores and say, I'm Jasmine Singer.
Well, speaking of which, if we were to go into a grocery store near where we live and we weren't paying attention to where, it would likely be a Wegmans, which is the primary grocery store in the area where we live, which brings us to...
Yes, we are so excited for this Flock Friday. We're so excited to welcome Adam Durand. Adam is a videographer and an animal rights activist with over 2 decades of history in the movement. And he first gained recognition in 2005. I can't believe it was that long ago. I am so old. For exposing cruelty at Wegmans. And it was specifically at the Wegmans Egg Farm, I think, in a case where he spent 35 days in jail before being released by an appellate court. And Adam's advocacy has included so much. It's hard to put into a sentence, but open rescues and strategic campaigns and support for farm animal sanctuaries such as Mockingbird Farm Sanctuary, where he serves as the lead caregiver.
And his impact... lead caregiver. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Oh, no. Okay. I love that you did that. Okay. You're so sweet. Okay. As a lead caregiver.
I'm just going to insert here. I used to work at the court and my title was principal court attorney. And there were court attorneys who were fine with being introduced as the principal court attorney, and others who said, well, I'm a principal court attorney. There were about 50.
And time,
thank you, Adam. I appreciate that correction.
When I was the senior editor at Veg News and someone wrote an article for us who was the former senior editor, wrote, so-and-so used to be the senior editor, and the copy editor, who was also the senior editor at some point, crossed it out and said, was a senior editor. It's very funny. Anyway, so back to Adam. His impact has been featured in so many national publications, including earlier this year in Vox, and cited by one Marianne Sullivan in her recent law review article. Welcome to our Hen House, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I just want to bring our listeners and our viewers back to this moment where Marianne, you could help me here. But Marianne and I moved to Rochester about 4 years ago-ish. And I was recently giving a talk, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago at the Unitarian Universalist Church. And Marianne was there and as in the audience. And suddenly Adam came up to me and was like, hi, I'm Adam Durand. And I was like, and it was more like I was so awestruck because you have such a big presence in the animal protection world, but also the early days of my own advocacy. It really coincided with your investigation. But I also knew that Marianne was going to lose her shit. So I think the first thing I said to you was, can I introduce you to Marianne Sullivan? And then Marianne lost her shit because Marianne, tell us why. Why was that such a big moment for you?
Well, not only have I been familiar with Adam's work since that investigation, and a good friend of mine was one of the attorneys on his case, so I never met him then. And then I wrote that article in which was all about the legal relationship between, the law and open rescue and how fraught that is and how there should be defenses. And the courts don't let you use the defense. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy legal situation. And one of the main cases that I emphasized in that article was Adam's, because it just brought all of those problems in litigating this to the fore. And of course, now there were other cases, the direct action everywhere. So things have really progressed since then. There was kind of a long hiatus, and then other people started doing the same thing. I don't think you necessarily invented open rescue, because I know Patty Marks is kind of credited with that, but you certainly invented it for me, and I think largely in the U.S. The whole practice of going in, taking the animals and not hiding. I mean, people have rescued animals since time began. There have always been good people who saw animals in desperate straits and went in and got them, but not necessarily announcing that they were there. Before we get to that, I just want to mention before we start that I know there is a current court case because Adam has not stopped his activism and it involves you, but I know you can't talk about it. So we're not going to ask you to talk about it, but we're going to link to a Vox article that is all about that case, but it's still in litigation. So we won't go into that, but we do really want to, we want to go into the details of what happened in the Wegmans case, because I think it is one of the seminal cases in animal law and really in animal rights. And it's also the reason we know about you. It's an old story, but it's still so important and not enough people know about it. So this is kind of an unfair question. Can you just tell us the story? Like just start at the beginning and tell us what happened for people who don't know
It was
yet?
a Tuesday and I had pancakes that morning.
Yeah, I mean, it started for me in 2022. I had a friend over for dinner, and she was vegan, and I didn't really know what veganism was.
I don't think you meant 2022.
Oh, I meant 2002. Thank you. So, but yeah, this was back in 2002. So yeah, I had a friend over, and I was looking up what are vegan recipes, like what is this all about? And so I made this fun meal. It was like fondue, and did a bunch of fun stuff. And I told her after dinner that I had so much fun like learning this and making this food. And she's like, why don't you try going vegan? So I said, sure. So I was suddenly vegan without any real idea of the ethics, or, I cared about animals, but I didn't make that connection personally until I was vegan. And then people started calling me out for being vegan and saying, well, you're a hypocrite because of this reason or that reason. They wanted to debate me, and I had no idea how to debate. So I joined an online community and eventually met local friends. And so, I was starting to become part of like this. It was a smaller community back then, but one night we were sitting around at a restaurant called the Atomic Eggplant, which is no longer here in Rochester. The Owl House is here in Rochester. It replaced the Atomic Eggplant, but it was a vegetarian restaurant, and we were kind of brainstorming, how do we make an impact as activists? And, around that time, Milo Runkle had come to town. He was working out of Ohio. He was very young at the time, but he had started activism around, he was basically going into factory farms and documenting what was going on inside. And we're like, we want to do that. So, and he had learned that from Patty, and some other folks in the movement. And he had kind of talked to us a little bit about it, and we felt inspired to kind of take it on as our own. So there were only maybe 5 or 6 of us in the core group, who put this all together, who were learning about biosecurity practices and how to film inside of a factory farm and all these sorts of things. And then we were looking at, well, what factory farms are there in the area? And there was one big factory farm that was owned by Wegmans Food Markets. They were the only grocery chain in America to own a factory farm. And we said, well, that's an obvious target for us.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say that when a lot of people go vegan, their first instinct isn't, I'm going to go into a factory farm. Their first instinct is, I'm going to make some cupcakes and share them with my neighbor or something like badass. A, B, what was the facility like that the hens were in? And
before we get into the details, I just want to mention how inspiring that story is because of the person-to-person trail that you demonstrated. People always are saying, oh, we need massive change. Individual activism doesn't matter. Let's just look at that. That woman was vegan. She had dinner with you. Then you met Milo. Like, people influence each other and then things happen. So individual activism is so important. But go on.
I'm being a terrible interviewer right now, but I need to say, it's kind of weird that you were in Rochester and it was Wegmans. Like, was that just a giant coincidence that was the only grocery chain that had their own factory farm?
Yeah, we were just here in Rochester with a grocery chain that had 750,000 hens in a facility about 45 minutes outside of the city. So it was just
okay.
Well, Wegmans was always like styled itself a little different and a little, I mean, actually, in a bragging kind of way, like, maybe not quite Whole Foods, but a little
I know,
a
but
little
that
better. And
it's
Wegmans,
based
actually,
here.
those people who aren't familiar with Wegmans, it's a large supermarket. It's now a very large supermarket chain in the Northeast. I think it's just in the Northeast, but it was founded right here in Rochester. So
That's what I think is
you were
weird.
going
That's
after the home
all
team.
right. Back
Yeah,
back to you,
And
Adam.
it's totally beloved.
Yeah.
Like,
it
people
is.
love Wegmans. I don't know why. It's just a supermarket, but they love it.
And their motto is food you feel good about. And it's printed on their egg cartons with a picture of a picturesque farm, and animal care certified. And at least at the time, that's what the cartons looked like. And so we knew that this was the ideal target. This is a beloved company. And, we were going to go get footage, rescue any sick animals we came across, and release the footage to the public with our names on it. That was the plan all along. So we went in on 3 nights in 2004. And I almost said 2024 there. And so we had just gone under the cover of darkness. We had our biosecurity gear on, and these sheds were massive. So we come up to the corner of the first shed, and there is a hole cut in the corner of the shed. So somebody had been in before us. And
Wow.
we climbed in, and we took all our biosecurity gear off, and started filming, and we were just floored with the fact that egg farm looked abandoned, other than it was filled with live animals, but it was covered in dust, and there were augers that brought the food in and conveyor belts that brought the eggs out. And other than that, like, it was just this mechanical monstrosity that had been forgotten. It looked like just and then not only that, like, below the cages were these manure lagoons where chickens were walking around, chickens who had managed to get free from up above. So it was like, I mean, I can still remember the smell today, like, it was just something else, otherworldly in there. And so we ended up in that summer, we took 13 birds out with us, and 11 went on to live long lives at local animal sanctuaries. And then about a year later, because we had spent a lot of time working on a documentary and working with a journalist, and we eventually went public the following summer with our story. And then came all the charges and everything like that.
And you put a
Wow.
video out, right? I mean, a kind of famous video.
Yeah, we put out a video on BitTorrent, and we had DVDs, but yeah, so there was no like online streaming service
Yeah, it
at
was
the
this
time.
is back in the day. Yeah.
So, for, I think it was like $5, we'd mail you a DVD. And we also handed them out in front of Wegmans locations. And, so we were basically out there just trying to distribute the video in any way we could. And, we also would do like TV activism, which was a very small analog TV on a wagon hooked up to a marine battery. And so it's nothing like the TV activism you see these days, and it
Oh
said right
yeah.
across the bottom, it said food you feel good about question mark. And there were
I
all the
yeah, I just remember like standing on the Upper West Side wearing a TV, which was so heavy
Yeah.
that had like foie gras footage. It was I mean,
Yeah,
it
Eddie
was a
Lama
different
was doing
time
it all over New York City, but the equipment was very expensive
and very
and very
heavy.
difficult to load and
Yeah,
unload just to get video out on the street. Boy,
right.
times change fast, don't they?
So what happened? Like, how did Wegmans react? Was there? I assume there was a lot of hostility.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because they denied that the footage was from their facility, but they also pressed charges saying that we had trespassed illegally. So they had it both ways, really, in the local media at least. So they were able to deny it, and we even had GPS. Like we bought back then, you could get a little GPS receiver, and so we held that up on camera for the fact checkers and stuff. But but I would go on TV for an interview, and the interviewer would say, Wegmans denies this is from their facility. What kind of proof do you have? That sort of thing. It was wild. But meanwhile, I was also showing up to court appearances where the testimony was that, yes, that's clearly our facility. And, so, what are you going to do? So,
What were you like what was your story before all this? Like before the dinner with the friend? Like what were you doing? Were you just like a normal dude who's suddenly whose life was suddenly, you know, thrust into
Have you
this
forgotten what it's like to be young, Jasmine?
Oh, yes, I have. But no, but like what was this shocking to your life? Because this is quite the about phase.
I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't say I was ever a normal dude. I think that, um, I was always skeptic and somebody who questioned things. And I was a rule follower in every single way. I even today, I drive the speed limit and I have road ragers behind me, like honking their horn, frustrated that I won't go over the speed limit. And yet, in the case, when I see a moral wrong, I don't, I'm not going to follow the rules. Like the law goes out the window when I suddenly see something that needs to be addressed.
Wait
So,
a second. I
and
just wrote a whole law review article about how you didn't break the law. So be careful there.
okay, that's correct. If we're told, that this is wrong, you can't do this, by, in this case it would be the authorities, we could say, well, no, this is, there is a necessity here, we have to do this, there's a moral obligation for us to act. So, I feel like, and I had never been in trouble with the law before, but, I don't know, like I feel like I do kind of question those tenets of, like, well, this is how it's always been done. Like I always question that. So
And did you plead not? You pled not guilty, right?
yeah, and we did try to move forward with a necessity defense. I pled not guilty. I had two co-defendants who were offered plea deals, but I was never offered a plea
Oh,
deal.
okay.
If I was, I'm not sure if I would take it. Um, but yeah, in that case, they pled guilty to larceny. And I wasn't given that deal. I had to go to trial for burglary. So yeah, I was facing 3 charges of felony burglary for 3 different visits to the facility. And so that was a total of 21 years in prison if I had been given, consecutive sentences to the max.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
it ended up that you were actually, and can I just say, I mentioned that I knew the lawyer on your case. And I just say that at the time we discussed the necessity defense.
You
Just probably
what?
that's the whole story that started me thinking about, oh, there's this defense out here, which is basically kind of a lesser of two evils kind of concept. You could do something that would be illegal if it's to prevent something that's worse than the harm the crime would cause. So anyway, I just got excited when you said that. Of course, the courts get away with it by not letting you present it to the jury. But even so, even though you weren't allowed to present your case adequately, you were acquitted of a lot of the charges, right?
Yeah. So, and I guess the jury, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it was. Like it was our legal strategy was to show the conditions inside the facility, and for some reason the judge did allow us to show some still photos and some limited video of the facility. And we were just hoping that by saying these, we were rescuing these animals, we were not stealing them. And I actually testified. So I was up on the stand having to face the prosecutor and cross-examination and all that. But we thought putting me in front of the jury and having me talk about why I went in there, we could potentially get an acquittal. And so, yeah, I was acquitted on all the counts of burglary and the 3 counts of larceny and only convicted of 3 counts of trespass. So yeah, we thought that was a victory at the time. I mean, I was
Well, it
thrilled.
kind of was. I mean, you'd
Yeah.
still be in prison, Adam. So,
I could be.
so I would count that as at least a semi-victory. I mean, it's very similar to the Utah DXC case in a lot of ways because they were also not allowed to plead a necessity defense to make that argument, but the jury ended up acquitting them, and they were able to bring in the condition of the hens. In that case, it was pigs. The condition of the pigs because one of their arguments had to do with the value of the pig. So they actually did get some, and that's what's so important is getting before the jury some indication of what the hell is actually going on in those places. And I mean, juries are made up of human beings who like actually react, I would say. So I would say that was a very important part of your case, that the jury managed to see some of that.
Yeah. What was prison like, Adam?
Well, so, like what happened like right before sentencing, ABC News Primetime Live came out with a report on the case. This was like days before sentencing. And
Wow.
Chris Cuomo flew out to the egg farm to interview me, standing in front of the egg farm, talking about the conditions inside and why I had gone in. And this was part of, they did a show that particular week. It was on people, video either getting people in trouble or getting people out of trouble. It was like the impact that video has, and they were pitching me as part of this, like this video. He filmed this to document the bad conditions, and yet they used the footage against him. And so, the judge, I think, was unhappy with the positive coverage I was getting in the media. And so on the day of the sentencing, and we were expecting, we were not expecting jail time, but the judge gave me 6 months in jail. And something like a year and a half of probation, hefty fine, community service time, and it was past the statutory limits in New York State of what the judge is allowed to sentence you to.
Yeah.
So
I can tell you, like, no, a first offense trespass of a person with no record whatsoever, nobody's going to get jail time. Nobody, except you, Adam.
well, the problem was that I wasn't able to appeal right away because the judge had given me an illegal sentence. So the appellate court wasn't going to even review the case until the judge had given me a proper sentence. So I was carted off to jail and awaiting time on the judge's docket, which was about a month later, so that he could actually give me a sentence that would be allowed in New York State. So yeah, in jail, I mean, it was something else. I had known about the inequities in jail, and I had been just in general opposed to the carceral state. But being inside of it is something else. Like it's not, you can't learn about this really. You have to experience it. And it shocked me the amount of just the classism and racism in jail, and the way that the guards treat inmates, and without any kind of repercussions. And I was called terrible names by the guards, threatened with abuse, like they would threaten to beat me up and stuff like that, maybe to get a rise out of me. But I just couldn't believe the treatment in there. And this was a rural jail. And some of the guards, it was my understanding that they worked at Wegmans Egg Farm as security. So yeah, then they would come and, I don't know, take it out on me. But then, the inmates though were great. Like I got along great with the inmates, and I didn't form any lasting friendships in the month I was in there. I think I kind of wanted to put some of that world behind me. I did see the impact that jail was having on my fellow inmates and my own life, like the way that it puts stresses on families and finances and all those sorts of things. And it was a month later that I went back in front of the judge. He sentenced me to just the 6 months of jail time, not the probation and other aspects of the sentence. So it was now a legal sentence in New York State. And a few days later, an appellate court let me out. And so, and that was unexpected to just get out that fast. It felt amazing to be able to pet animals again, to be able to touch grass. Literally, I just loved touching grass or breathing fresh air, all those sorts of things. So yeah, it was an experience. It was a terrible experience. I was forced to serve eggs in the jail, as part, that was my job. And for zero pay, because in New York State, in most states, you don't get paid for your forced labor in jail. And then, I had nightmares and stuff like that, and had trouble remembering how to use like drawers and clothing and stuff, because I only had one set of clothes at any given time, things like that. So it was something else, but I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
do you, I mean, do you have any kind of PTSD from your experiences in anything that you've been talking about, whether
Yeah,
it's jail or the open rescue?
I feel like the moment I got sentenced by that judge and was whisked away to the jail, like I definitely did a lot of therapy around that, to kind of dig into like what that moment was like, where I thought, I was all right, and then I was suddenly be in this other world that I did not expect to be in. My partner at the time was away. She wasn't even in town, and I was supposed to get back to feed the dogs, and I had all these
Oh,
responsibilities. I had
man.
a job and all that, and now I have this different life, and I thought I was going to be in there for at least 4 months, maybe the full six, because I was given that 6 month sentence. You get a third off in New York for good behavior. But I was thinking, well, I might have to protest because they weren't going to feed me vegan food, or because of the conditions, what have you. So I thought maybe I would have to serve the full six. So I was buckled up for that. But that was like that was definitely something that I've had to process over the years. But it's something that has motivated me to stay active, to know that that people go through this all the time. Like people, there's just so many people in the US, especially, like more so than in other places in the world, that have that experience, that are whisked away from their families. And so I think about that, and that makes me get out there and fight for human rights as much as animal rights.
What did they feed you?
Well, part of being the person who served eggs to the entire jail, I was also in the kitchen. I got to work in the kitchen. So
Oh,
I was able to put together a I would have, what was my diet mostly? It was like white bread, margarine, orange juice, lima beans. And these were all things that,
well, lima beans are good for you.
they are. And everybody would get like a slice of white bread, but I could have all the white bread I wanted, that sort of thing. So being in the kitchen was great, because the first
Yeah.
couple days before
Yeah.
I was given that job, I was very hungry. I was just eating, just a couple things off my plate. And the jail said that I would need to lose like 10% of my body weight before they would consider feeding me a
Oh
vegan
my
diet.
God.
It was, yeah, they needed me to have a medical emergency before they would acknowledge my diet.
Wow,
Wow.
that's nuts.
It's interesting what you say about like that you keep going over that first, the first moment when you were carted away. Because I've heard it mentioned so many times that, within, if you're going to have carceral penalties, short ones can have so much more impact than long ones, because it's those first 3 days where you're just completely freaked out. You think your life is over. And then like anything, we're humans. We adjust to things. Everybody adjusts to things, and it doesn't have the same emotional impact. It sounds like for you, those first 3 days were bad.
Yeah, it was like, in New York, you're kept in solitary confinement for a couple days while there's a tuberculosis testing process. And that involves that involves some sort of animal products too. And I, didn't consent to those being injected into me to see my reaction. But yeah, it was, I was alone. There was a jail librarian, who, like, just one of the fellow inmates, but he had the job of handing out books, and he gave me an Oprah Book Club book that I think I read twice, cover to cover, in those couple of days. It was, you're just trying to get through, and this is an empty cell. I mean, it is really something else when you, at least in my case, when I first went in.
Mm. Do you shop at Wegmans now? Are you allowed to?
I don't think they've ever formally trespassed me from the store. I
They don't have the
definitely
egg facility anymore. I should make that clear.
They
Yeah,
did, yes. So
they got
soon
rid of it.
after, soon
Yeah.
after our expose, I think it was like around the time I was in jail. So that was like a year later. They sold the egg farm, which was the largest egg farm in New York State. They sold it to the company that owned the second largest egg farm in New York State, and they still run that egg farm to this day. So it's in the same place. And so, yeah, Wegmans is out of the game, but it appears that they still have a contract with that company, that they're still selling eggs from that facility. And as far as I know, yeah, I spend maybe out of my own pocket, I spend maybe a few dollars, maybe $10 a year at Wegmans if I'm like in a pinch and I need to get like a beverage or something. I don't spend much money there personally, but I do, I have a lot of friends who shop their family, and I'm lucky enough to have a lot of stores around me that are not Wegmans.
So, having had the experience that you have had, can you share your thoughts on the past and future open rescue in the movement?
Yeah, when you look at a lot of historical movements, um, they involve they involve, movements that have had success have involved people who have taken some personal risk. And so I feel like open rescue should be part of a larger strategy that the movement has, many different facets. But I think that open rescue or other kinds of nonviolent, direct action should be a part of where we're going. I do, it's sad to think of the personal adversity that we need to face as activists in order to make an impact. But we're up against so much. We're up against, and it doesn't seem to be getting much better. And I think we need to stay out there. And I think we do need to be aware of movement resources, and there's not a lot of animal rights attorneys. There's the Denver Animal Law Clinic. They're amazing. And then there are other folks out there who are doing that incredible work. But there's not a lot of people. So we need to pick and choose our battles, of course. And I think, but I'm fully expect to be doing more of that kind of work in the future, and I hope other people do as well.
You mentioned when we contacted you to do this, that you wanted to talk about dystopia. And I was thinking, that is a word that I remember, but I don't remember why. And we actually interviewed Claire Mann, who I think coined that term. And she was on the podcast on episode 539, but I don't remember a lot about it. And you specifically said you wanted to talk about it. So tell us why and what it means for those of us who forget, and what it is and how you handle it.
Yeah, so dystopia is the experience of being vegan in a seemingly uncaring, non-vegan world. And it's
Seemingly.
seemingly, yeah. That's the
That
thing.
was so sweet, Adam, that you said seemingly.
Because we can debate. Like it seems like in a way people care, but yet they're putting their money behind, this atrocity that, yeah. So yeah, it's hard. And it's hard when you're out there in the streets, you're doing what you can to change the world, and you don't see an immediate impact, and you wonder, like, what is going on? So, I've personally have really struggled with that feeling of distress and feeling like I live in a dystopia. And so, yeah, I just think that activists should take care of themselves. And one way I do that is by, of course, volunteering at an animal sanctuary. A mockingbird farm animal sanctuary has been a great way to connect to the animals who have gotten out of the food system and get to live out their lives in peace. And I feel like people need to practice that kind of self-care, find those avenues of being able to deal with these kind of negative emotions and channel that into positive. And cuddling a turkey cures all of my ills, it feels like.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Being around the animals really helps you get through it and renews your spirit. What do you think that sanctuaries also like are activism, like, because there's been a lot of talk in the movement about whether they're really, because they're expensive and
Mhm.
cost a lot of money to maintain them, and a lot of movement resources go into them. Do you think that they are effective in creating change, not just in helping us get through the night?
I do think that they're just an important piece of the puzzle, that it requires all sorts of different avenues for change. And sanctuaries, we need a place to, if we believe in open rescue, we definitely need a place to bring the animals who we rescue. So sanctuaries are important for that reason. But just in and of themselves, like they are a way, like like, for example, this weekend, my church, we have an animal ministry at First Universalist Church, and we're bringing folks to Mockingbird for a tour. And, so we're bringing people who might not have a background in animal rights. They get to meet these animals. We get to talk to them. And not only are, we potentially helping people on a path towards a more peaceful diet, but maybe we can get them out on the streets as well for, the upcoming protest against Marshall Bioresources or something like that. So it's part of a puzzle that I just think is important. And I think we have seen a lot of funding like this effective altruism. Some of that money that used to go to animal sanctuaries might be going more towards plant-based meats or things like that. And I do think that plant-based meats are important, but I think, like I said, they're part of a puzzle. And if we have the plant-based meat, but we don't have the ethical background of why people should be switching over, then, what does it really get us other than maybe a temporary curiosity that people have?
Right. Or the media and the arts, which effective altruism is not so effective in funding because they don't see it. I mean, where would we be without that? Where would your campaign have been without media? I love Mockingbird, by the way. I've interviewed Jonelle for WXXI, and I know her twin sister, Jasmine, who I adore. And just the sanctuary, they do incredible work there. And you just mentioned Marshall Bioresources, which is a massive breeder of beagles, cats, pigs, and ferrets in upstate New York. So I'd like to just go back to that for a moment. Can you tell people a little bit more about that and why it's something you're passionate about?
Yeah, so Marshall, they've been around, oh gosh, like 100 years, I think. They have been around for a long time. And I think they've since the 1930s. So they are, I believe they are the largest breeder of beagles for science in America. They currently have 26,000 beagles there. And they are just 45 minutes outside of Rochester. They also breed ferrets for sales at pet stores. They breed cats and pigs, but beagles are their main moneymaker. And they are, if you look at them from the outside, they are set behind hills and trees and things like that. So they're kind of obscure, but they look just like a factory farm, just like any other factory farm. But there are beagles inside, which, when I first went vegan, I definitely wanted to focus on chickens because they are, they have hard lives in America, in the world, chickens in general, and there's so many of them. And beagles, the beagle people already love beagles, right? But now, as a more seasoned activist, I recognize that beagles are a great avenue for people who might not care about chickens yet, but they definitely care about dogs. There's a lot of people who love dogs, who love beagles in particular, and those are the kind of folks we're recruiting to take on Marshall Bioresources. And they're right now they are losing funding on a federal level because of in general, science funding is being pulled. So Marshall doesn't have as many places to sell their beagles. So they are on the ropes. And right now our strategy is protest and, some other related strategies of talking to, suppliers or people who, distribute Marshall products, because they also have a manufacturing capability, and they're making like cages for animals, things like that are sold at pet stores. So we're kind of looking at the whole business in general, but right now our goal is to get out there in front of Marshall, and we're holding up signs. We are and the thing that's heartbreaking to me is that they work with the local school system to bring kids in to work in the facility. So there's a school bus that pulls up every day and drops students off. And so at least the students see us when we're out there, and we get a lot of support from the local community, a surprising number of thumbs up in the area, because it seems like even the neighbors around this facility are opposed to what they're doing inside.
How do you it's always so difficult to mount a protest against a business that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like, are there good places you can mount this protest? Or is it, if I know vaguely where it is. It's not a heavily populated area. Is it like, do you get, I mean, the school bus itself makes it sort of worth it, but do you get a lot of traction?
We don't, there's zero foot traffic. But
Yeah,
there's,
yeah.
there's,
I mean, we're in the middle of the country here, like,
yeah,
just,
it
and you
is a
mentioned like
major,
it's a big, like it's kind of behind closed gates.
yeah, it's a big facility, and it is on a road that connects a major route 104 up to the Lake Ontario. So we do get a lot of traffic going by. And then this coming week, where it's apple harvest season, so we're expecting more people in the area, potentially apple picking, things like that. But
The apple picking is a big deal here up in upstate New York, I can assure you all.
So yeah, we're hoping to get more eyes on our protest, and also hoping to draw the media out. We got a
Yeah,
little bit of media
yeah.
coverage last year, and it's great to have that out there. But it's going to take a lot more than just protests to bring Marshall down. It's going to be a long fought battle, but hopefully we can get those dogs out one way or
But I
another.
think you're exactly right that this is a good moment. I mean, talk about every cloud has a silver lining. The attack on the federal government is managing to reduce the funding for animal experimentation right now. So they probably are in a vulnerable position.
So Adam, we've kept you for a long time, and I want you to be able to do a Q&A with us and our flock who's here with us, as this is Flock Friday. So if you're listening or tuning in and you want to be here live, check out the flock at ourhenhouse.org/support. And thank you also to our flock members who are here. But Adam, I just want to kind of end on a really simple little question that I think you could probably answer, which is why do you think that people, not the psychopaths, but like regular people who love animals, aren't vegan?
I think it comes down to human psychology, which, is a very complex thing. But yeah, we are very good at holding two competing thoughts in our heads at the same time. Like, I'm a good person who loves animals, and I also like to eat animals. And it's amazing that folks are able to do that. And, nobody here is infallible. There's aspects in our own lives where we're like, well, I care about the environment, but I'm also buying a single-use plastic from the grocery store, for what, maybe it's a bottle of soda water, which my 7-year-old niece just called me out the other day for buying. But yeah, it's there's aspects of humans where we do have these blind spots, each in our own way, and the major blind spot, of course, is with animals. And it's going to take just a lot more work. And like I said, we're coming from all sides here. It's going to, we're going to need to be pressuring the companies to roll out better products, and we're going to need to keep talking to individuals in our own lives about how they can make better choices.
I mean, this is the thing I hang on to give me hope, that it's the kind that, when you talk about this cognitive dissonance, we're holding two ideas at the same time. And it's the kind of thing that once you do wake up, you really wake up, because once it falls apart, you can't put it back together again. You actually see the truth. So I think, even though I don't know how we create that change, I think that change can happen really fast. I think we've all seen it in our own lives. It's like that all of a sudden you see it and then you can't unsee it.
Right. Yeah. And you are a reason why so many people see it. I mean, you really, you were always someone I looked up to long, like decades before we actually ultimately connected. But it's just even more so now because you're so sweet. Like, why are you so sweet? Like, with everything you've seen, why don't you have a chip on your shoulder like me and Marianne, or do you? And we just don't see it.
I beg your pardon?
No, but like, you do have a sunny disposition.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah, I think, I have my moments, I'm sure, but I try, my main goal is I only got one shot in this life. I might as well enjoy it as best I can. Spread the love, pull in all the love, like the love you're putting out. And just live the best life I can. And that means trying to save as many individuals of all species as I can.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that seems like the perfect note to end on. Adam, if people want to get in touch with you or follow you online, do you have any socials you could share with us or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on the socials. I'm not great. I think it's like Adam.Durand at Instagram is probably the best way to get in touch.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
it's Adam.Durand on
I
Instagram.
love that you checked that. That's so great. All right, fine. And we'll link to it in the show notes if that's okay with you.
Definitely.
All right, amazing. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. Don't go anywhere because we want to chat with you with our flock in a moment. And if you are watching or listening, thank you so much for being here. If you are a flock member, watch out for the bonus content in your email Monday. If you're not a flock member, you know what to do. ourhenhouse.org/support. And thanks to Vicki Beechler and Jen Riley for their assistance in producing this episode. I'm Jasmine Singer.
I'm Marianne Sullivan.
She did it again. And catch us for Rising Anxieties on Tuesday.